webinar is being brought to you by CAI, Catalysis Group, and Reality. If every project you've ever seen finished on time and budget, with happy customers and a satisfied team, I don't have anything to offer you in the next 90 minutes. But on Earth, where I come from, it's not always that easy. So I want to just tip of the hat here to Reality. Let's talk about sponsorship. An outline for what we're going to talk about. I want to make sure that we've dealt with it. We've dealt with a lot of the administrative. I want to take care of some definitions, define the role of the sponsor, and talk a bunch about the interactions between the project manager and the sponsor on a project. Talk about some of the forces that influence project evolution. Want to address 5 common sponsorship issues, and then we'll throw it open to questions. I'm quite curious to see how this question and answer interface is going to serve us. So, a little context before we begin. The most important project management idea that I've ever been exposed to is what's sometimes called the iron triangle. When we talk about a project, we're talking about a temporary effort we undertake to accomplish some goal. But the bottom line is you can't have an intelligent discussion about a project unless you talk about 3 very important things. What do you want? That's the scope attribute. What exactly does the project deliver? Features, functions, quality, performance, goodness. What are the work products? That's the project's scope. Schedule. Schedule answers the question, when do you want it? And resources. What are you willing to invest to get it? People, equipment, facilities, materials, dollars. All those things comprise resources. I do a great deal of project management consulting. This triangle, if you commit it to memory, will encourage people to think you're much smarter than you actually are, because it reminds you to ask questions to cover all 3 of these. When organizations take their eye off the ball of one of these, typically that's the weakness, that's the blind spot where they'll get hit. So if someone describes a project, here's what I want, and I need it next Wednesday, what you need to do is think, okay, so there's the scope, there's the schedule. What resources are available to get this done? And asking questions about the silent side of that triangle is very helpful. When it comes time for optimization, if I'm having schedule grief, one of the things I'm going to do is look for scope or resource remedies. So don't mean to be back in kindergarten, but this is really fundamental to a whole lot of things I'm going to talk about, so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. When we talk about project management, the nice folks at PMI give us a definition. It's a textbook definition, and I've got a lot of respect for those folks at PMI, but doesn't this definition make it seem like project management means you're always going to meet the requirements? According to PMBOK, project management is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet the requirements. I think it's easy to read that and get the mistaken impression that if I do a good job of project management, I must be successful then, just as a matter of course. You know, the project failure rate is still pretty high, and there's more trained and certified project managers than ever before. So it seems like project management is not enough. You know, a lot of organizations can't tell the difference between good luck and good project management, bad luck and bad project management. We've got more and more certified project managers. Why are projects still failing? Hey, we spent all this money on project management. What's going on? Well, it turns out project management helps to get projects done, but there's no guarantees. At the start of a project, there's still a great deal of uncertainty about the future. There are no facts about the future. Everything we think we know about the future takes the form of assumptions and guesses about here's how this is going to unfold. Very few projects are so clearly defined that there aren't some gray areas in the definition. The bottom line is that the initially defined goals of some projects may be impractical or impossible when we get into the details, when we get into the future. Sometimes external things in the environment will change. Team member leaves, technology changes, we've bet the farm on a specific platform, becomes obsolete, or a vendor goes out of business. All the time, new information or changes in context might make meeting our project goals either impractical or a poor business choice. So the problem that we have is that not all projects should be completed, and sometimes we don't even recognize that until we get well into them. This complicates the role of the project manager and really emphasizes the role of another player that's not getting a whole lot of press, and that's the role of the project sponsor. Now, when I talk about a project sponsor, I'm talking about an organizational leader, typically an exec, someone who's going to be a notch or two higher in the org chart than the project manager, who's responsible for assigning resources to projects. They decide where do your critical talent, where's your DBA, where's the DBA's time assigned, where's the architect's time assigned, where does the money go, who gets cycles. Sponsor's responsible for allocating organizational resources. The sponsor picks and chooses which projects live, which projects die, which projects go to life support. The sponsor gets to set the goals and expectations of the project. The sponsor gets to tell you, here's how good I want this to be. One of the things that is interesting when you talk with the engineers associated with lots of projects is most engineers get into engineering because they love building things. They love the elegance of a good solution. And, most of us remember when we were young engineers and we thought that there was some ideal of goodness and our job was to try to hit that ideal of goodness. Well, the sponsor actually is the person who gets to decide how good does this need to be. They get to identify the project objectives and establish priorities both on a project, if it was going to be a day late or cost $1 more, what's the sponsor's preference if that becomes an irreconcilable choice. And also between two different projects. If the DBA only has enough cycles for one of two projects, who wins, who loses, and the project that loses we might expect schedule, scope, or resource consequences. This talk is about the role of sponsoring executives in the project management process. And in addition to talking about that role, I want to talk about the project management to sponsor interaction and how the project manager can best serve and involve project sponsors. So let's talk about the role of the project manager. Someone has to understand the goals and constraints of the sponsor. And that's really the project manager's role. The project manager should be the primary liaison or ambassador between the project and the project sponsor. Some people say the project manager's job is to get the project done. Actually, if you could think back to what I said a few minutes ago, some projects may not be feasible. Some projects, because of information that emerges halfway through, it may not be wise to continue them. So it seems kind of one-dimensional to say the project manager's job is to get the project done. I'm not sure that's true. I really think the last bullet on this slide is the important point. The project manager's role on a non-trivial project in the real world is to provide timely and accurate information to the sponsor to support good business decisions. And those business decisions might be changes in how resources get allocated. It might be negotiating with marketing to cut out some functionality that it turns out is much more difficult or much more risky or much less stable than what we want in a product. It might be in a consulting engagement, it might be going to the client and working with the client to change expectations or to suggest functionality be apportioned differently between a first and second version. Supporting sound business decisions, that's ultimately the project manager's role. And they're supporting sponsor business